Hello, I'm Carol Westerman and I'm from Evolve to Harmony, and today I'm teaching at Pranam Yoga Shala, and I have two lovely practitioners with me, and we're going to share with you a practice called Yin, and it's a little bit different maybe than some of the other styles of yoga you may have practiced. With Yin yoga, we tend to hold the poses more for like 2, sometimes 3 minutes, and that might sound like a lot, but the good news is almost everything is done on the floor. In fact, everything we will do today will be done on the floor, so it's actually really relaxing. So we'll go ahead and come into the first pose, and I'll kind of walk you through it. You'll bring the soles of your feet together into a butterfly position. And everyone's a little different. Some people like to have their feet closer to their body, but typically in Yin, they're a little further forward, because now what we're gonna do is hinge forward at the hips and come into a forward bend here. If you have pillows on your couch, or if you have blankets or couch cushions, you might want to use them. Otherwise, if I don't have props with me, I'll simply even maybe hold my head in my hands. On the days where I'm feeling pretty flexible, I can bring my head down. But every day is going to be a little different. And if it's your first time with this pose, you'll feel a little stiff. And then once you find a place that feels comfortable with just a mild sense of stretch, then we'll stay there. I invite you to close your eyes if you'd like to. You can take this as an opportunity to focus on your breath, following the inhale in, following the exhale out. And then it's just a practice of repeating that. The inhale in, then the exhale out. And if you notice that maybe you were, a little excited and came in too deep to the pose, you can always back yourself out a little bit if you overdid it. And on the other hand, if maybe the sensation has lessened and you want a little more, maybe you can come in a little further. As you may be noticing, this pose is a stretch for your inner thighs, it's a stretch for your hips, it's also a stretch for your lower back. So this is nice to do either in the morning when you wake up, or at the end of the day, anytime in between. We're here for about a half a minute more. Last 3 breaths here. And when we come out, we want to come out really mindfully. So you're going to use your arms to push yourself up. You kind of come up slow motion. You'll feel a little stiff when you first come out of a pose. Then we'll take our hands to the outside of the legs and lengthen your legs forward. Let's lean back onto our hands and then point and flex the feet. All right, and then separate the legs a little bit more, and let's do some big circles at the ankles. Other way. Very nice. And now we'll cross the legs and come to a seated position. And this is just to kind of clean the slate. So we'll do some circles here. Your circles will look different from mine and different from theirs. And then we'll go the other direction. Okay, so after that first pose, it's nice to come into a back bend. So we'll come to all fours. Your hands here at the top of the mat. And the first thing we'll do is some cat-cows. So the first part of the movement, you're finding this arch in your back. Your sternum is forward. It's a little bit like a cow out to pasture where you have that curve in your low back. And then the cat part, you're arching like a Halloween cat and letting your head relax. And now you just move back and forth between those two. And it's called cat-cow. Let's go one more time each way. Okay, from there we're going to lower down onto our stomachs. This pose is called Sphinx. You're going to think about putting your elbows underneath your shoulders and then the palms of the hands together. And then if you'd like to, you can relax a little bit through your upper body. In most styles of yoga, we don't do much of this shrugging, but in yin, it's okay to do that. And then closing your eyes if you're comfortable with that. Just letting your body melt into the pose. Feel free to adjust the distance between your legs if you'd like. If your low back feels like it needs more space, you just separate the legs further. And with every exhale, you allow your spine to relax a little bit more. If it feels like this is too much for you today, then what you can do instead, and the girls, you guys can just stay where you are, but I'll show you, you can cross your forearms and then rest your head on your arms. Otherwise, wherever you are, melt into the pose. Each pose becomes like its own individual meditation. So the practice of yin can be a really helpful bridge if you're interested in mindfulness or meditation. But even if you're not, the benefits that you receive for your body here are important in and of themselves. We have one more minute to go. Last couple of breaths. Now in Yin Yoga, there are two parts to every pose. There's where you're in the pose, which we've been in for 3 minutes, And then there's the part of the pose where you're coming out. So we'll lower down and rest our head. And this afterglow is very important to the practice of yin. It's where you notice how you feel. And notice where you feel the after effects. Turning your head the other way. Now we're going to transition onto our backs. So I'll have these lovely ladies turn over onto their backs, and I'll kind of walk you through the pose here. So once you've turned on to your back, we'll gently hug your knees into the chest. Yeah, and heads that way I think works best. So hugging your knees into your chest once you're on your back. And for those of you at home, you just want to make sure that you can see, or at least be able to peek and see what we're doing, just to make sure that you're on the same page that we are. Now we'll come into a twist. Both knees will go over to the right-hand side. And then once your knees are comfortable, we'll stretch the left arm over to the left. So by its nature, a twist means the lower part of your body is going one way, and then the upper is going the opposite direction, so that you're twisting through the spine. If you're at home and you have pillows or blankets and you want support, you could put something between the knees, or some people like something under the knees. You just want to feel like your legs and your feet can be relaxed and that they're resting on a surface. And now something I like to add into the twist is to slide my left arm slightly overhead, still keeping it on the floor, but it just adds a little bit more emphasis to the upper body. If you're newer to a mindful practice like this, sometimes when you slow down, you'll notice that your mind gets really active and has a lot of thoughts. That's completely normal. Over time, your brain sort of gives up and quiets down. Now that we're about halfway through our time in the pose, see if you can slow down your breathing just a little bit. Those of you at home, if you find the practice is a little too quiet for your taste, you could actually turn on some music in the background and still practice this as you listen to your favorite music. So we'll keep our knees over to the right, but let's re-extend the left arm over to the left where it began. And then open and close your left hand just a couple of times to get the circulation into the hand and fingers. And then from there, we'll draw the knees back to the center and hug the knees into the chest. Taking this moment in between sides is very important. We tend to want to rush this. And now we'll do the other side. So the knees will go over to the left. The right arm stretches toward the right. You may find that your left side and your right side are different. So if you need to add props or pillows, please do. Then the option to take the right arm a little bit overhead if you'd like to, but just make sure that your arm still stays on the ground. One of the things you'll notice with a quieter practice like yin is that you get to notice patterns of thought. So I've seen some different research that says we basically have the same like 3 or 4 thoughts over and over and over and over and over and over all day long. So we're not like coming up with these amazing ideas and inventions constantly all day. It's little mundane things. So if that's happening to you, guess what? You're normal. But give yourself permission to let some of that go. And let's be really honest, most of us don't have a half hour a day to practice yoga, or maybe we do some days but not every day. And the type of practice we're doing today, you could choose any one of these poses and just do that one pose for a minute or two. You don't have to cut 30 minutes from your day to practice unless you have that. Any amount of time is perfect. We just have a few more breaths here on this side. We extend the right arm to the right, and then open and close the hand a couple of times. And then from there, we'll draw the knees up to the center. And we'll hug the knees into the center towards the chest for a moment. And then we'll actually keep the knees bent, but bring your feet to the floor. And you'll take your feet wide, so about 12 inches apart, maybe even further than that. If you're on a yoga mat, it would be about the width of your mat. But you don't need a mat for this practice. It's one of the reasons I love it. You can do it on the floor. And then now keep your feet wide and let your knees come together gently. Just taking a moment here. And now keep your feet wide. So the feet aren't really going to move their position, but we're going to glide both knees over to the right side. And then we'll hold the knees over there. So your knees get to be nice and relaxed over to the right. Your feet might turn onto their edges. And then now we'll do the same thing over to the left. So both knees to the left. Once you get there, relax for a couple of breaths. And now we'll do what we call windshield wipers. So you'll go side to side. And just like on a car, some windshield wipers go quickly, some go slowly, some sort of vary the speed. You just want to move back and forth in a way that feels really good to you. Let's go once more each way. And then after you're even from left to right, we'll have the knees bent, but we'll shimmy the feet back to about 6 inches apart. And now what we'll do is we'll take your left ankle and cross it over the top of your right thigh. You can see that she's got her knee nice and relaxed. And then you can stay here. So if you're feeling a stretch on your left hip, there's nothing further that you need to do. If you're not feeling a stretch, you can hug the right thigh in toward your chest. If you're at home, sometimes you can even put that right foot up on a chair, or maybe up on your couch. And then let your shoulders relax, relaxing through your eyebrows and your jaw. If you are ever deciding to do some of these stretches on your own, first of all, that would be amazing, and I encourage it. And then secondly, you want to hold these stretches about a minute, and then if you want to go a little longer, maybe even 2 or 3 minutes. All right, so we're just going to change things up slightly in the pose. So if your right foot isn't on the floor, you'll go ahead and bring your right foot back down. And then now you're going to cross your left leg all the way over the top of the right leg. So it crosses kind of like you're sitting in a chair with your legs crossed. And then tip your knees over to the right. So it's a twist like we did earlier, but it comes a little bit more into your hip. And then your arms, however you want. It can be out to the side or overhead. And I hope that as the practice progresses, that the time flies by a little more quickly for you. But in the beginning, a minute or two seems like a long time. We have about 3 or 4 more breaths. And then taking your time, we'll tip the knees back up to the center, and we'll do those 2 things on the other side. So bringing your left foot to the floor, the right ankle will cross over the top. So again, you're letting your right leg sort of relax. You can keep your left foot on the floor. If you already feel a stretch in your right hip, there's no reason to do anything else. Otherwise, if you'd like, you can hug the left thigh up. Once you're there, make sure you're relaxing through your shoulders and all the muscles of the face and jaw. to 8 more breaths here, depending on how slowly you breathe. And then we'll make that slight change. So your left foot comes to the floor if it's not already. The right leg will cross over more completely, and then we'll go ahead and let the knees fall gently to the left. You can always prop up with a cushion or a pillow or a blanket or a pet if they're nearby. Relax your arms. So we're almost done with this pose, and this is actually our last pose of our practice today. We have about 8 more breaths. So after those 8 breaths, you have the option to lie on your back and find a pose called Shavasana, which basically means lay there. However, if you have things in your day that you need to move on to, then that's perfectly fine as well. Let's take 1 or 2 final breaths here. And then we'll bring the knees back to the center, uncross the legs, and I'll have my lovely assistants come into Shavasana so you can see what that looks like. Arms relax, legs relax, tuning into your breath. I invite you to stay in Shavasana as long as possible, and I thank you for joining me today. Namaste.